myself out.
I am afraid of...
I'm terrified and paralyzed by...
I am deathly afraid of...
Welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast with your host, me, Ryan Perio. Hello and welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Perio. This week, my guest is fellow podcaster and comedian, Wally Hipolito. Wally lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and is a comedian who is making his return to the stage here recently, as well as his own podcast called Off the Stoop, where he just kind of talks about any and everything going on. It's kind of a stream of conscious podcast, which may be going under some renovations as we speak. He just recorded his 50th episode when we did this interview. In this interview, we talk about living in the San Francisco Bay Area, getting back into comedy, basketball, and then we get into his fear of mediocrity, which is a very fascinating fear for me. So let's get into the interview right now with Wally Hipolito. All right, my guest this week is podcaster from the Off the Stoop podcast, Wally Hipolito. Wally, how you doing today?
Good, Ryan. Thanks for having me on, man. It took a little while, but we're here now.
Yeah, we can always take a break for good things. Like I said, we can always reschedule when good things are on the way. I totally get that. I've had a couple of instances where I all of a sudden, like, because I'm a comic in my spare time, and there have been times where I'm scheduled to do a podcast, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and it's one of the clubs saying, "Hey, we need you to come out tonight." And so I've got to say, "Oh, sorry."
Duty calls.
Yeah,
duty calls, man. You got to answer it.
Mm-hmm. And as we were talking here before we started, you are planning on making your grand re-entrance into stand-up comedy.
Yeah, man. I mean, like we were talking about, it's been about 12 years since I went up on stage, and throughout this pandemic, it's kind of just given me time to think about what I really wanted to do and who I really wanted to be. And it's not this pencil pushing dude in a fucking in an office taking shit from some cuck who has nothing else better to do with his life, basically. And I can't be under that man anymore, under those people. So, and I need to talk shit. Like, I need to talk shit. I need to be around people who talk shit and understand that PC culture doesn't always have to be around us.
Okay. Well, then it sounds like stand-up is the career path for you. It sounds... You seem to be gravitating to the right field of expertise. So you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, in that area, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Right in the city.
Have you scouted any of the open mics in town? Have you kind of picked which spot you want to try to make your re-entrance into out in San Fran?
I haven't yet, and so I'm in a couple of groups on Facebook, and so the city and the Bay Area is just starting to open up lightly, but they're barely letting in maybe like half capacity. So right now, what I'm doing is trying to go to these comedy writing workshops or like practice open mics where they have a bunch of them in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much what I've been doing, and doing a lot of writing while I'm at it too. So I haven't thought about where I'm going to go try to make my re-entry into the world. Okay.
Have you gone to any comedy shows? I'm very curious to how like a Bay Area audience may be different, because I can tell you in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, it is highly conservative, and so sometimes you can poke fun at the left and get a huge response, whereas I think if you were over in what I like to call the capital of the left wing and making those jokes, I would just, it's got to be such a different environment. Like for me, because I'm in Dallas, Texas, even though we're a fairly liberal city, there's still a lot of conservative oil money in here. And so you'll get that, and you'll get the rich, white, Caucasian, conservative.
Yeah. So I have been to a couple shows, and I know we talked a little bit before this. My plan was to actually move to Brooklyn this year, which was supposed to be in May. And I wanted to do that because you're exactly right. Like, the San Francisco Bay Area, it's a great place. It's a great liberal place. You know, you can do or be whatever you want, but trying to do comedy here is so difficult because everybody is literally on edge about everything all the time. So, you know, as a comic, you have boundaries, but you also have to not have boundaries. Someone who's been in the game like you knows that for sure, but the audience has to be able to let you to push that boundary just like a little bit over the line. But what I've seen from comics around here, and this is no shit at them at all, it's more at the crowd than anything. They don't allow you to go over that line. So they've come in with this kind of routine already where they know, okay, we're gonna have to go political. It's gonna have to be against the right. We can't say anything about, you know, you can't make any homosexual jokes. You can't do there are a lot of rules, and the gatekeepers, from what I've seen, are really strict to those rules because at the end of the day, it's about making money, right, for them.
Absolutely. And as somebody, you know, that's something, like I said, as a comic, you have to learn is there's certain rules in certain cities, and I'm sure there are gay jokes that can be made, but it can't be any, I would say, that are demeaning. I would say they come across can come across as poking fun. You can poke fun, but you can't make fun, is what I like to call it.
That's a great way of putting it, actually. And that makes a lot of sense. But for me, at least the way I grew up is this. I grew up in San Francisco. So like, I mean, I have gay uncles. My godfather's gay. And like, I have no animosity towards the gay community. Mm-hmm. It's just that the thing is, you guys are people also, and you just need to get roasted. Yeah. And I think it's more, for me at least, it's more the intention than it is what they're saying. Yeah. But with Bay Area comedy and, you know, how politically active this area is, they don't let you say it. They just kind of bite the headline right away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I grew up with, and my father's gay, and so I've grown up with it, and so again, since I've been exposed to it, it doesn't register for me as something that's wrong or however.
Dude, exactly.
It's just always been in existence for me, and I don't understand and I get their side of it as to being a little sensitive because they have been made fun of for the longest time. Like I just watched Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. You know, it was on Showtime or something late at night. I just got home late and I was snacking before I passed out, and they say the F word against gay people. I'm not going to say it on here, but they just say it cavalierly, and like that was 1991, and it was, you know, that was a PG-13 movie basically. And so I get that there's always been that underwriting that there's such a rush right now to actually explore like the gay life. Like you look at the HBO series, is like, what's the one that they had with the gay? I can't remember what it was called. But it was, they have a couple where exploring homosexual and lesbian couples and things like that.
It's a new one.
They had a lesbian one, and then they had a gay guy one once. There was like all gay guy cast, and I can't remember what it was called.
Shit.
But it's, again, you know, used for, you know, 20 years ago. I don't know how old you are. I'm 44. But 20
I'm
years
30.
Yeah, so when you were a kid, the gay person was the comic relief in every show. Like, yeah, you know, the gay people were just the wild, flamboyant, and I was like, that's not everybody. And so there's been this, like, I would say almost a renaissance of, I guess, you know, just portrayal of what a real, authentic, you know, what really happens, that it's not this totally different lifestyle or anything to be afraid of. These people have the same struggles you have for 95% of their life, but they have the extra 5% of you criticizing and judging them and trying to apparently, you know, make them feel like they're less than a person.
Yeah, man. And that's why I say you kind of like have with comedy, and yeah, I think particularly with comedy and not much with anything else, you have to like really think about the intent of what they're trying to say. And I just like, you bring up Will and Grace, and I was thinking of How I Met Your Mother with Neil Patrick Harris. Like, he's an openly gay man, but he was the comedic relief as a overly masculine straight man who is a womanizer and everything that has, I mean, everything that's considered toxic masculinity and masculinity in today's world. And I love it because it allows you to play and allows you to just be free, because like you said, they're just people at the end of the day. And I get that there are these stereotypes, but in this day and age in 2021 with streaming service and with streaming services and all these avenues where you can learn and read and see what, you know, someone who's gay or someone who's whatever is like, we should be able to like know that like they're just people too. They put on their pants. Maybe they don't put on their pants. Maybe they put on a fucking skirt, and they're just regular people like you and me. And yeah, like you said, they just had that 5% where we judge them because they don't fit our criteria.
Yeah. And somewhere along the line that's been portrayed as wrong. And that's the whole thing, is that for the longest time it's considered taboo or not acceptable. And so San Francisco is definitely a city I definitely want to try and hit when I do travel, just because it has so much there's just so much there. Like the only thing that would keep me from moving there is the cost of living. Because it's super.
Don't even do it, dude. Don't even fucking do it unless you have that Texas oil money or you feel like living in a box for a couple years. Then by all means, please.
Yeah, they have some really cool parks though. I know some of my friends got married, and some of y'all like the parks y'all have there with like the Sierra redwoods and stuff like that.
True, but is it worth it when you live in a $2,500 studio in like the worst neighborhood?
Wow. No,
is that park really worth it?
Nope. That's why I travel. That's why I preface with travel. Because I've done my research. I was like, oh, this is, it's super nice. Well, the cost of nice is that.
Dude, no.
$2,500 for a studio. That's the cost.
Like, I'm lucky that I live on my own, and I live kind of in the outskirts of the city now, and I pay about $1,000 a month, but that's because I own my own place, and not everybody gets to be that lucky and like, save up and do things that way. But here it's a struggle, man. Like, it's not even just during the pandemic that everyone's struggling. It's like we had pandemic before the pandemic happened. Yeah. Like, it's been 7 years of that shit. And, the pandemic was just, oh, fuck, now we got to all stay home. It's like, God damn it. Okay. We can't even at least enjoy the city that we're getting ran out of.
Mm-hmm. So it's rent so high, like, would it be like you have to move back home with your parents into their studio at some point? Like you would all have to live in one studio apartment?
Dude, I mean, some people don't even make it an option to move out in the first place. You just stay in that studio, and maybe you can get the closet, sneak in your girlfriend when your parents are asleep, a couple hits in, and then, just make sure you leave before the 4:00 bell rings.
Yeah, y'all also have fog, like the fog horns and stuff like that go off.
Dude, now that I'm really thinking about it, like it's really a good thing that I'm thinking about leaving the Bay Area. You're just hitting all points right now, Ryan, and I like it, but at the same time, I don't like it.
Well, it definitely plays into what you said your fear was. So I mean, you're taking it. You're taking big steps because your fear. Go ahead and tell the listeners what your fear is.
What is that?
Mediocrity. And I was like, that you were just leading in perfectly. Like, I can't stay here because I'll just be in the middle of just making it here, just living, in this $1,000 box.
Yeah. And no, I'm truly scared of mediocrity. And I don't mean mediocre as in, you don't have talent, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm scared of mediocrity as in you're not willing to do it, and I think that's mediocre. Not having talent, that's just not having talent. Not having found yourself, that's it. But not trying, I think that's extremely mediocre, especially in the last year when people have really been able to kind of evaluate their lives for the most part and really like think to themselves, hey, the government's fucking me right now. So I got to think and do something to either change it up, go a different way with my life, or I'm going to stay here and just suffer and, kind of hate the world.
Yeah. And that's such a great point. Like, I didn't even think about like how much self-reflection you can do by having, by being. I've kind of done some of that. Like, my living space has gotten way better. Like, because when I was working and just doing comedy all the time, like, I didn't come home till like 3 a.m. So I'd leave here at 10 and not come home till 1 or 2, then go to bed at 3. And so now that I've been home so much, like, I've gotten new furniture, I've gotten a couple new rugs, and just kind of made it livable. Because it's when you're sitting somewhere, you realize how, I guess, off your stuff really is. Like, oh, I really don't have as much space as I really think I do. Like, I have stuff stacked on stools and bars. I've recently moved. I work from home, so I definitely have moved my work computer out to the living room during the tournament because I'm a sports fan. So I'm like, I want to
nice,
because it was in my bedroom, and I'm like, I don't want to walk around and then have to walk back when someone chats in.
Are you a Texas guy?
I am not a Texas guy. My grandfather was a big Notre Dame fan, so college football wise, that is my college football team is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Mm-hmm.
And basketball.
What about for hoops?
It's North Carolina is number 1, then U of H.
Ooh, that's a tough year for you guys.
It's hard when you're basing your coaching on, you're just putting it all on your coaching. And so, yeah, if you have all the time of the world, these students, coaching staffs like the ones at Duke and North Carolina are going to dominate because they can maximize this guy's 1 year at college and just coach him. And with COVID restrictions, guess what? You don't get that one-on-one time. You don't get that time in the gym. And so there's no teamwork or cohesion because I don't know how many hours they practice, but I would think after 4 or 5 hours a day of running the same plays over and over, you're going to know where everybody's going to be.
Yeah. And I don't pertain to just this year. When did North Carolina win it all? In 18?
17. I think it was 7. Yeah, I think it was 17.
Versus Villanova, right? Those last second shots?
That's 16. Villanova won.
So who did you guys beat in 18?
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. I think, I follow college basketball pretty frequently, and I'm not trying to steer off too much into the convo, but dude, Roy Williams, his recruiting process or his recruits have been fucking terrible the last couple years. I don't know if you're like super into high school max preps type shit or like go on Instagram a lot, but his recruiting classes have been garbage. So like, for the standard of North Carolina, it's terrible. Of course, if you went to fucking Iona or somewhere else, like you'd be the shit, like you'd be guaranteed. But for Roy Williams and that program, his recruiting hasn't been that great lately.
Well, I'm just wondering if he just if he just needs to up his basketball, I would say, like, to change his coaching philosophy. Because I'll say this, it hasn't changed. It's big guys inside rebounding and putting up turnaround jumpers and small guys at the perimeter shooting. And so I feel like maybe Roy Williams needs to maybe get a couple of young assistants and just try to expand his knowledge base, because I feel like he's in a rut coaching wise, and that boils down in recruiting. He's got these low post bangers that, and against smaller competition, they're just gonna when they miss, they're just gonna rebound and go back up.
Mm-hmm.
But that the basketball itself is changing, and I'm wondering if he needs to maybe change his philosophy and to get more athletic bigs or stretch fours, like the one stretch 5 that they had put himself in the transfer portal, I think. But he didn't look like he was very aware of where he was supposed to be in the games he did play.
I haven't watched too many, but who is it you're talking about?
His name was like, he's a white, I can't remember his name, he's like Fuller or Huller, but he was like,
come on, Ryan. Of course he's a white guy. But he's a white big man at North Carolina.
Yeah, but they were portraying him to be a stretch 5, and I was like, well, that's interesting. to be able to have a 5 that can shoot, that they haven't had that since, their championship. But again, they've never really recruited an NBA caliber player. I would think the last really good NBA caliber player was Antoine
Harrison Barnes.
Harrison Barnes.
And
yeah,
I mean, I don't want to say Danny Green was a really good NBA player, but he is an NBA player.
Yeah,
that's won rings.
He's found a niche, but again, like I said, when you think of franchise playing, franchise first round draft picks, you don't really look at North Carolina since, Harrison Barnes, Antoine Jamison, Jerry Stackhouse.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that, I think that just boils into the philosophy he's always had, because you can go back to all his championships and there's really nobody on those teams that really stands out, but they play really good cohesive basketball, as the bigs are just big enough to body out and go back up with the ball. But there's nothing really that scares you.
Yeah, and I think that like lends to your point about all those players that we had mentioned. All those guys we were talking about, they're all forwards. They're all big guys who can dribble the ball and they can shoot from the perimeter. And from what I noticed in the last couple of years, Roy Williams hasn't really had that forward. He's just had that. He's basically kind of tried to recreate that Tyler Hansborough, Ty Lawson team, it looks like, for like the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And, for his level, that was cool, like you said, in 2008, 2009. But like you said, the game is evolving. And it's evolving a lot slower in college, but it is moving in a different direction.
The 3 is becoming the end thing. It's more about the 3. So it's getting guys that can drain the outside 3, which they have one in Kermit Johnson. If he stays, then that dude has one of the purest strokes I've seen out of a shooter.
If he's a 3-and-D, he's not staying.
I don't know if he's a 3-and-D. He can shoot the lights out though. I mean, his stroke is pure. He's gonna be a Glenn Rice or Del Curry type shooter, just pure, fluid, just textbook.
You put a lot of pressure on him just now. Del Curry or Glenn Rice, that's big dog. That's big dog. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, I'm just thinking shooting wise. Like I said, he's just got the pure stroke.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like we were saying that, and to talk about this episode, go back to the subject at hand. Roy Williams has been mediocre, and we don't like mediocrity in North Carolina or in my little studio apartment.
So when you say mediocrity, so where did your first experience with what like the feeling of mediocrity? Is it just your day job, just doing day job work?
I think my first like encounter mediocrity, it had to be like in high school. I grew up playing. Oh, no. You know what? It had to have been in college. So upon graduation, I was supposed to actually go play basketball in the Philippines. And I had torn my knee, broke my ankle, all in a span of like a year and a half. And I had to relearn how to walk, not just like baby steps. I don't think I started walking until like 8 or 9 months. And during that time, I'm only like 5'6". And I was like 150 at the time. And I gained like 40 pounds. So you can imagine how that kind of looked. And that was the first time I really thought to myself, like, oh shit, you haven't done anything in months. Like, you look like a sack of shit right now. You are mediocre. And that kind of just played into my head mentally to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't live in the Bay for a while. So I actually moved to Hawaii for like a year and a half just to be out on the island, to kind of like walk and bike and just not know anyone and experience some new shit. And, during that time I became a chef, and before you knew it, 4, 5, 6 months goes by and I look like a fucking crackhead. and yeah, it's I mean, ever since that experience of like not being able to walk, I just thought to myself, like, you can't be mediocre, And yeah, mediocre, it just scares the shit out of me, honestly. And like, honestly, I'm not saying that I'm perfect or that I'm the shit. Otherwise, I would probably be on the grand stage as an actor or something. But, every day I'm working towards being less mediocre.
So you were a chef. So what kind of did you specify in Filipino cooking at all? Or?
Well, I do cook Filipino food for like family and friends and my loved ones. But in Hawaii, I worked for this guy named Roy, and he's like the godfather of cuisine in Hawaii. So he created modern Hawaiian food. He modernized Hawaiian food, so it would be like a loco moco with like farm raised eggs and like grass fed beef, and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still loco moco at the end of the day. But what he taught me was, not settling for terrible ingredients. He's like, and because that's a form of mediocrity, and you're not doing anyone a service by doing that, by trying to take shortcuts, because that just a shortcut leads to another way towards mediocrity. So he always told me to play the long game, like be patient, and tried to instill these things in me. Like he was kind of like a father to me, to be honest. He kept trying to son me, but we always fought, but I always took his lessons into account, at least.
Well, but I would say that's a paternal role. Like I said, that kind of plays a fatherly. Like you're never going to agree totally with your dad. There's always going to be some friction, because you're even though you want to impress him, you still have to walk your own path. He can't make you walk the same path he did. And he wouldn't want you to. He that's probably his big fear, is that he doesn't want you to have this. He wants you to have that path a little easier to walk than the one he had to walk. And if you have kids, you probably will want the same, as you want their path to be even easier than the one you had.
Hell yeah. Jay-Z said this in a line in Watch the Throne. I don't know what kind of music you listen to, but he said this in a line. He said, "It took me 26 years to find my path. My only job is to cut the time in half." And he was talking about his future son or daughter that he may have. And it's like, that's so profound, because I don't have any kids or anything, especially up in this fucking box. But yeah, that when I do eventually have kids, like I want to make it as easy for them as possible. But I also don't want to make it too easy for them, because there's also another saying that, like, I don't want them to be the son of a great man. Okay. Because, those, like, you watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've watched.
Like, dude, I don't want to say Robert Baratheon was a great man, but what the hell was this kid's name? Joffrey was a shithead. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean by son of a great man.
Yeah, but also it wasn't Baratheon's kid. So
True.
It was just sold as that after, I guess, the Lannister thing happened.
After they did some work?
Yeah, that's so uncomfortable. That I swear sometimes HBO just puts scenes in shows just to create a reaction. Like, okay, you're really pushing the boundaries of what. I'm sure it did happen, but for you to put it in episode 1, it's kind of like, well,
but that hooked you in, right?
Yeah.
In a disgusting way, because you got to see what's up with these freaks, because they're a hot couple, dude. Like, that's a hot fucking couple right there.
It definitely changed my opinion of Cersei Lannister fairly quickly. But yeah, it seems like you've been kind of predisposed to not settle. So that's such an interesting thing, is that all these paths in your life that you've kind of accepted not settling and shook things up. Like you moved to Hawaii, you trained as a chef as one of the fathers of modern Hawaiian cuisine, or I guess they call it island cuisine. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he's been on like Top Chef or something at this point. And so,
yeah, definitely.
And so that it's such an interesting thing too to find. So what is cooking your passion, or what are you passionate about for yourself? That if you were going to change the game in one thing, what is it going to be?
Honestly, dude, what I'm doing now, podcasting and comedy. Okay. so I actually graduated from school with a degree in journalism, and I was going to try and be a sports journalist. And I just have, people have told me this, and I'm starting to kind of see it in myself again. Like, I just kind of have this natural flow of like talking to people. And you know what? Most of all, I just fucking love talking to people. Like, I love having a good time, having good conversations, whether we go deep or we talk like shitheads. Like, I love having conversation with people and getting to know people. Like, that's the thing I love the most. And then like entertaining people I fucking love entertaining people.
Yeah. And again, so in your eyes, a mediocre product would be something that when you watch the video, for me, comedy wise, my seal of excellence is, can I watch the video of this comedy set? Can I, because I don't know if when you start comedy, you'll to study, sometimes you'll listen to your audio, or worse, you'll watch your video. And it's painful. It's painful to watch sometimes because it's hard for you behind your two eyes to comprehend what other people see, because in your mind, you can't see you. And so you think that, oh, I'm up here just destroying, okay. I'm moving around. I'm super loose. I'm killing it. I'm so into the moment. And then you'll watch the video and you'll be rigid and nervous and kind of look at you, and it'll blow your mind at the difference of what you're seeing yourself on video, but to what you were feeling on stage. And it's so hard to watch sometimes because it's like, I've done this. It's like watching yourself, sing or anything like that. It's a process.
Yeah, and that's funny that you bring that up, man. And I'm honestly ready for that. Because it gives me it's not a sense of pride or anything that like, oh, I'm gonna fucking kill it every night. But once I am able to go up on stage, do the recordings and listen to myself, it's just the fact that I got up there in the first place. I think, especially in today's world, you're a little older than I am, but like, millennial generation and Gen Z, they're so used to having it their way immediately. Yeah. And everything has to be perfected and everything has to be perfect, where if it's not, they're not going to try. See, I'm a little bit of an older millennial, so I'm 30 years old. So I know what it's like to be like, I know what it's like to not get everything I want at one time. Like, I know what it's like to be shit at something. Like, I know what it's like to dribble a basketball at 6, 7 years old, be trash, and then you see yourself getting better a little bit every day. But, to stay with this basketball example real quick, in this day and age, like, there are thousands of trainers on Instagram that you can hit up, like, and you could go to a park or you can go to a gym and, get those skills up. And I'm not scared of the grind. Like, I know I made look like shit my first couple times back up, but that's what it takes.
Yeah. And you said it best when you were talking about your chef, or your pseudo father, when he said you got to play the long game. And that's what comedy is going to be, it's the long game. And it's enjoy the work you do in it, because at the end of the day, that's gonna be, the thing you're exposed to the most. There's very few, you'll have your few moments of bliss, but that first time on stage is what I feel like I always chase, is that high of that first time, just having no filter, no net, just going up there and completely conquering this fear for 3 to 4 minutes. I was up till 1 a.m, just, living off of that high. I'm now chasing it because now I'm a little bit more enlightened about it. And so every time I go up, I'm a little more enlightened, but because of my enlightenment, the sheer thrill of it isn't as high as it was the first time. It's still there. Like, I still enjoy it, but it's not the I'm sitting in my bed at 1 a.m, like, oh my God, that was the greatest set of my life. I was like, you don't feel that same amount. It doesn't ever go back up to that first level. So like your first time emotionally wise is the highest you'll ever be. And for a while it'll be lower because now you'll have expectations. Okay, well, it felt good this time. What, then maybe, you're more aware of what's happening, and this isn't going as well as I thought it was. I don't remember it being this bad, or I don't remember people. I don't remember people laughed or not my first set. I just remember being up there, and it's just the adrenaline of being in the public eye, being the lead dog, if you will, in a pack of people, because it's the biggest fear. Public speaking is the biggest fear on planet Earth. And so to get off stage knowing you did that, you're trembling in some instances, just like the power, just power you had.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, I'm fine with chasing the high, because I don't know if you know about chef life too often. I was a sous chef when I came back to the Bay, and I had, if you met me like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my balls were gigantic, huge, whale-sized nutsack. And that's because that it's, along with the drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, it's like you kind of live like a rock star.
Oh yeah.
And I was just, like you said, with comedy as a chef, you kind of chase that high and chase that narcissistic level of yourself where you're just basically mind jerking yourself off 24/7. So like maybe about 3, 4 years ago, I was exactly on that.
So what made you get out of chefing?
No, so my bad leg, it just started to creep up. And, like I said, like being a chef is not a job. It's a life.
Yeah.
Like it's a complete lifestyle. Like you're up 12 hours. You're a lot like comics. You're out at 2 or 3 in the morning. What are you going to do? Like go out with your coworkers, get drunk, wake up at 9 or 10 in the morning, go into work and prep, and then do it all over again. So eventually 4 or 5 years, my body just started to decay. And I just said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I gotta quit.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're definitely on your feet a lot. And for people that haven't been in a commercial kitchen, your floors are usually pretty wet, and you're carrying a lot of either heavy liquid or semi-solid that and Lexans and things that can and will slip or cause you to slip. And so it's definitely a lot on your joints, and it can take a toll, especially again with the pre-existing condition from basketball, to have to carry prep work back to the cooler, fill a 60-gallon Lexan with and just having to hold it and try to balance it and try to get it on the rack, wrap your racks.
Yeah. And then people don't take into account like the mental stress that it takes. You're essentially moving like a crackhead the entire time. And you have to think like one too. You gotta make sure that dish is prepared right. Got to make sure those sauces are good, and then you have to time it and tell the other guy like, hey, I'm 20 seconds out. You better have my salad or whatever dish accompanies it, and it just. Yeah. It takes a toll on every sense of your being. And it's just, I miss it. I loved it, but it's just not for me anymore.
Yeah. And I've did some of it. Like I used to work at a place called Eatsy's here in Dallas, Fort Worth, or it was food to go, which makes the Lexan thing even more, is because you just did it. Basically, you were doing prep work and you would get it to where all you needed to do was fire it. Is basically the concept of Eatsy's, is that because here we don't have public transportation. It's a kind of a myth, but we have a rail system, we have buses, but it's kind of a myth. A lot of people still drive, so it's like, well, why don't we make elevated to go? And so everything is like chef crafted. All you need to do is fire it in the oven for 15 or 20 minutes, and you've got basically like a chef just prepared you a fantastic meal in your kitchen.
Got it. So it's like a HelloFresh, but already kind of done for you. That's tight, man.
It was a lot. It was a 24-hour operation, so we had chefs in the building at all hours. So as soon as It's because we had sushi too. So as soon as prep work was done for the main courses, the Italian, the soups, the salads, the sandwiches, then the sushi chefs would come in from 10 p.m. and work till 6 a.m. and they would bang out the sushi for the day.
Shit. What, were you banging out any sushi, or what was your part?
I just did the prep work for most of the sides and stuff like that, chicken breast on the griddle and stuff like that. But it literally, when you clocked out, they took note of what time you clocked out, and then the legal thing is, I think they have to wait 8 hours so they can call you in early. And so they would make a note of when you clocked out, so they knew exactly when to call you in, especially like during Thanksgiving and things like that when we had catering and stuff like that. I mean, it was everything under one roof. We had a bakery, we had the kitchen, we had a sandwich shop, we had a hot grill section, coffee bar, deli.
Dude, how fucking big was this place?
Not that big. I would say it is about as big as your Black Eyed Pea or Bennigan's or all these restaurants that have gone under, but basically regular restaurant size. It's like in the middle was the chef case of the prepackaged stuff that you could buy on a la carte.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could get burritos, chicken tenders, couscous, all of that from the middle. But there was a bakery to the right with a conveyor belt oven. And on the other side was the kitchen with the big kettles and griddles that you could do in convection ovens. So you had your line there, and then you had your line prep for where they were chopping and stuff and getting stuff ready for the chef case. Then just to the right, and so you would cross a little alleyway before you went out to the chef case. There was the grill, so you could walk over to the grill, fire stuff on the charcoal grill. So they would have things going on the grill. We had homemade focaccia. We had a pizza oven, basically, that we could bake in. Then, and rotisserie chickens were the bomb. Then over past that, there's a little area for the customers to walk. There's a coffee bar and where they could eat to-go food here. So like they wanted to fire it up in the back. They could do that and eat in either that or in the front patio. Then next to that was the sandwich salad station where they could, one line was for salads, the other line was for sandwiches, and they would just feed you through. Then the deli was right next to them, so in case sandwich shop or salads needed chop, right for the deli. And then
Bro.
They had produce, we had everything. It was cool. If you ever come to Dallas, hit me up. I'll take you to one and you can scope it out. It was really cool.
Dude, I'm down, bro. Like Texas, you guys are doing it fucking right now. Like everything that you mentioned, all that food in one place, bro. If I want a sandwich, I got to go like 4 miles. If I want pizza, I got to go back the other way for 2. People don't move to fucking California. And that's not just because I live here right now. If you're in Texas, stay your ass there. You guys are doing it. You guys are doing it way correctly.
Well, thank you. But yeah, it's cool. It was cool when I first started there. It was literally, I did that fresh out of high school. So my uncle was a chef, so I had all this background in chefing at the house I was living at because my mom and my uncle lived together because my mom's side of the family kind of, after my grandfather died, kind of pulled together. And so we all were under one roof. And he was a chef, and so he would kind of give me pointers and stuff like that. And we went, I took a chef school and stuff like that while I was working there. So I could literally walk from my chef school to work. And so I would park at work, go walk to chef school, come back, bang it out, then go home, wake up again. And you're right. It's like the life of a crackhead because as soon as that phone rings and they need you, gotta go.
Yeah.
They don't play. They don't give you like, okay, we'll let you go this time. No, okay, we'll find someone who does. And that's the one thing about the stress part of chefing is they can find somebody that will do it without that chefing degree. They'll find somebody that will do it for $7 an hour. And that was the hard part for me too, is that they can work you that way. And even with or without the chef degree, but you're just so replaceable.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like once you get as a cook, like once you get a routine down, once you get the menu down, it's not that fucking complicated. Unless you're working at a Michelin 2 or 3 star restaurant, like Do you know how to grill some chicken? Do you know how to slather butter on a piece of bread before you put it on the griddle? Like, once you get that down, anybody can do it. And, you know, whether you have, like you said, whether you have the degree or not, it doesn't matter. Like, are you going to come to work? And if not, if you don't come to work today, don't think for a second that you have a job tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, and that's one thing I ended up in tech support after that because I was very good with computers. And it made more money. I was making $7 to $8, and with tech support, I literally walked in the door with no experience. And it was $9 to $10 an hour, and it was like sold. I'm like, why am I working as a chef when I can make $9 to $10 an hour doing tech support, and then upwards from there it went upwards from there, and now I'm comfortably, I'd say, making a comfortable living doing it, and then do comedy for extra income.
So how did you start in comedy?
Well, similar to you, it's similar to your story. I would say that I was from tech support. I graduated to telephone company in 2000. So in 1990, 98, 99, I lost my job. I lost a lot of stuff there. And I started doing tech support again when I found a job. There was literally a 3-month period where me and my roommate at the time could not find a job to save our lives. And all we did was apply for jobs and played Mario Kart 64 all day. That is all we did for like a month and had like basically Carl Budig. I don't know if you know what Carl Budig meat is. It is like sawdust deli meat and grilled cheese sandwiches.
Oh, fuck.
So it was like 69 cents for a little package of meat, and so we would eat that, which probably wasn't the healthiest thing, but that's all we had, and drank one Mountain Dew. Like, we had rationed our junk food for.
You guys never had the government bologna?
No.
Dude, don't knock it. I mean, if you got a poor friend, you know, invite them over, but tell them to bring that government bologna and that government cheese. Make a grilled cheese sandwich out of that. Oh my God, it's heaven in a bun. Like, it's better than In-N-Out, better than, what do you guys have? It's better than Whataburger, better than anything you can ever have.
Okay.
A thick slice of bologna and some government cheese.
Okay.
On some Texas toast.
Okay.
Thank me later.
Well, I will. And so I started at the telephone company because they had a position open up, and I got hired on for a temp agency in 1999. And by 2000, I was one of the more specialized people in that workforce. Like, I knew every piece of the comedy, or not comedy, but the tech support. And so I became like an engineer. And so by 2003, I was feeling I was indispensable, and I got let go. They found a reason to let me go. And it's one of those things where you learn, I'm in a right to work state. So I know in California, that's a little different, but in Texas, we have a thing called right to work, where as long as they have a real reason, you know, they can find a legitimate reason to fire you. They can fire you without, you know, you can claim unemployment and all that stuff, but they can just terminate you for any, you know, reason. Say, you know, you didn't document properly, so we're going to have to let you go.
Fuck.
And so I was kind of mentally scarred. And so I started working for the Nextel at the time. And Nextel, I was making okay money, but I was just never going to, I don't have a college degree, so it was never going to be as good as what I had. Like, I was never going to have benefits here. I was going to be temp for life. And so I started to sit there and think, what do I really want to do? And while I was at the telephone company, you know, one of the things I was on my bucket list to try was stand-up comedy. So I printed out, back in the day, we didn't have Google and everything. There was just, I found a document online for like 40 pages of what to do for stand-up. And I had leafed through it. I printed it out, and I had leafed through it over and over. And so in 2003, I committed myself. I was like, we're going to try, because at that point, I was like, what do you want to do? You want to go back to school? And I couldn't fathom myself going back to school and finding anything I enjoy. I was like, that's just stressful. And so the second thought was, what do you want to do? And that's what I focused on. I got a couple of books. I got the Comedy Bible by Judy Carter. And I went through those. And I got stuck on start your first open mic. It's like they have a workbook and it's like, now do your first open mic. Well, at that point, I got a new job where I was working nights. And so,
shit.
And so, yeah, I was working 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. I would upload commercials for TV stations. So I would, after the commercials were edited and made sure everything was correct, we'd ship them out either by satellite or by FedEx delivery to the TV and radio stations that they belong to. And so I did that for 3 years. And in 2006, I got a DWI. And then shortly after my DWI, I lost my job.
We really have the same lifestyle, right? We really have the same path, dude.
And so I lost that. I lost my job. I lost my apartment that I was living with my roommates. Like, I haven't spoken to my best friend since that all went down. So I don't know anything. Everything, I just lost everything. And so I had to move back home, had to basically sleep on my mom's couch and change clothes in her garage. I did that for like 6 to 8 months while I was in and out of jobs. And then I got this job that I'm working at now in 2008 as a temp. Worked there for 4 years as a temp. My mom had her house, I guess, lost the house, by some sort of, I guess, oversight on the loan agreement that she couldn't afford. And so I had to move. She moved into an apartment and I moved into my own apartment that I'm in still to this day. So I've lived here about 10 years in what's called Irving, which is kind of a middle ground between Dallas and Fort Worth. Because my job was, at the time, was 5 minutes away. We moved to Richardson in about 2 or 3 years ago. And so, but now we work from home. But at 2006, with a DWI and everything, I decided, and my job, I was like, well, I'm going to work days now. So now I have to try stand-up. And so I made a plan. I was going to do it in August, and then one of my friends was in a motorcycle accident, so I went and visited him in the hospital instead of doing it that. And then when I did go up, it was a week after. Like, they said, don't go up this week. Watch the show, because I started a clean comedy club, which can sound intimidating, but it's actually probably one of the best things I learned. Is it's easier to transition and be clean and go dirty than it is to start dirty and then try to figure out how to be clean. If there's one advice I could give you, is just try to start clean, because you always know how to go dirty, but
yeah,
when you're dirty, it's hard to break those habits and go clean. And so it kind of expands you and makes you write better, because you have to try to find, okay, what's a universal word for fuck in this situation? Or, instead of saying shit, what can I say about this? And so it just kind of, I would say, just expands your vocabulary just ever so slightly, so that you don't always go for, and I said, F the, fuck this. And, that's because some people, it just becomes a crutch, is that they don't realize that it's the word they're saying, not the joke they're writing, that's getting the laugh. And so I had to sit there. I went for the first year of my comedy. I had a breathalyzer in my car, and I had to navigate that while being at bars and stuff like that to try and do stand-up. I struggled. It's been one of the hardest and most, I would say, beneficial things that's been done in my life, because I will say comedy does make you, again, make peace with who you are and your flaws. So whatever you don't like about yourself, because you just got to write about it, and then you just kind of in that writing and joking about it, you make peace with the fact that maybe you're not the guy that women are attracted to, no matter how much you try to flirt and stuff, that you're just never going to be that guy. You're never going to be the guy that all the girls are impressed by, but you can make a whole room laugh, and you can find one girl that really appreciates it versus the groupie,
the masses.
Yeah, the groupie.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think comedy also a lot like podcasting. It's like, it's just so therapeutic. And you said this at the top of the show about just it being like real, you know, maybe you said it off recording, but it's just like being able to say what people are thinking in a way that they can convey and isn't the most offensive, but is a little offensive at the same time, you know, because it's shit that people need to hear at the end of the day, whether it's your insecurities or just like if you're talking about society as a whole.
Mm-hmm. So what would you tell people that may be afraid that they're going down a path of mediocrity? What would be your suggestion to kind of, I guess, because mediocrity could also just be, like you said with chefing, a routine. Is just the methodical. Is it just to shake things up, like you going to Hawaii? Or
I think my advice would be just stop. Don't be afraid to look stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are scared to look stupid. So it in turn, it kind of like, it forces them they think they shouldn't try to do something because they'll be mediocre at it. But without reason, like, you won't be happy if you don't try and like take the cookie out of the cookie jar, you know? Like you gotta climb up on the counter, you know, open the jar and take the cookie. But if all you're doing is thinking about it and just staring up at the jar, I mean, to me, that's mediocrity. Like, I can live with looking stupid and having people think I look stupid or I'm crazy, but I can't be able to live with myself knowing that, fuck, maybe I could have done this. Like, maybe I should have done that. And everybody has their regrets, but I don't want to be a person who regrets not trying.
That's a fantastic way of trying it, is that you don't want to be known as the guy that stayed on the cliff when everybody else jumped off.
Yeah. I mean, dude, if you go base jumping, you're not getting your deposit back. So you might as well jump out.
Awesome. I thank you for doing this, Wally. Where can people find you on social media if they wanted to check out you or your podcast or upcoming comedy?
Comedy coming soon, but you can find me on Instagram at Off the Stoop podcast. It's spelled how it sounds. You can follow my personal at Wally Hipolito. That's Wally with a Y, not that fucking robot. And my last name is Hipolito, and Wally Hipolito for my Twitter. And yeah, man, I mean, my DMs are always open. I'm always open to talking and meeting new people. And I'm actually about to hit the 50th episode of my podcast next week. I don't know when this episode of your show comes out, but you know, next week I'll hit 50, and then I'm going to take a break and kind of reevaluate the show a little bit and reevaluate some things. But I'm excited, man. It's some big things to come.
Well, congratulations on the milestone. And I hope, like I say, I know whatever you decide will probably can only make the show better and more, maybe, I don't know if you'll go more comedy centric since that's what you'll be going to, or if you want to keep it something that kind of opens your brain channel to something outside of comedy so that you can kind of almost pull in real life and maybe even, I guess, because a couple of times I've kind of gone through some bits in my head, like while we're talking, like, oh, you know, like something being said just all of a sudden inspires me to think about another way of doing a joke or writing a new joke.
Yeah, man.
I didn't want this to be a comedy podcast at the front. Like it can be comedy on it, but I didn't want it to be just about comedy again. I talk about comedy so much. Like I feel like my audience would be like, we've heard this comedy discussion already. And I feel like there's only so many things in comedy wise you can talk about. Like how did you make it? Well, I went up to open mics and I just had an opportunity. I think there's a blueprint. There's kind of a blueprint. It's very fluid because anybody can have, at any point in any time, can have an opportunity drop in their lap. And it's very fun, but it's also it's almost like lottery-esque.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy filling out those little lottery cards every week because, you never know when your number's called.
For sure. I gotta have you on, man. And the show is basically whatever I want to talk about that week, right? It could be trending topics, and I can have people from different areas. Like I've had comedians on, I've had singers and rappers, and I've had political figures, I've had psychologists on, and the show is really just about my interests. I kind of take from Joe Rogan a little bit where he doesn't have the same type of people. He knows a lot of influential people and he talks to who he wants to talk to at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So like it's just him having a conversation with friends and maybe getting some new friends onto this show. So like I am like thinking I was thinking about the comedy thing for a little bit, but like you said, it's just like there's only so many times you can ask somebody about like where they started, It's like eventually I'm going to get fucking bored of myself if I keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for doing this, Wally. We'll talk again soon. Like I said, definitely excited. Hope your opportunity in your 50th episode are killer. I know they will be. And then again, congratulations on your re-entry into comedy here in the near future.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
So that was Wally. I really enjoyed our conversation. I really enjoyed his take on mediocrity. His take was knowing you can do better, but not giving the effort, which I think is a very fascinating fear did you give it your all? Did you really put forth an honorable effort on things? It's very interesting that his life has taken him from basketball to chefing in Hawaii, back to San Francisco, and then now into the comedy and social media arena. It's always interesting to see where people's passions lie and to see where they're going differently. I wish Wally the best. 50 episodes is a milestone achievement. We'll hopefully get there. We're at episode 40, so we're not too far behind. We're doing it regular stream here. I thank you for listening to this podcast. I've been doing live recordings this week. I actually did one yesterday, and I have one here in a couple hours. It was a great time. I was surprised at how well it turned out because you just never know with your first time. Like you expect all these little hang-ups and hiccups. And thanks to musician Oscar Nash, who will be a future guest, as he was one of my interviews yesterday. I got 6 interviews. They're going to be slightly condensed episodes. So because they were live and I wanted to try to get as many artists and creators in that space as quickly as I possibly could, there'll probably be around 20 to 30 minute long episodes. But we got 6 yesterday. Hopefully we'll get 5 or 6 more today. And we'll have a great time. Thanks to Oscar for the PA system so that people walking around could actually listen to the podcast as we recorded it. I got an author. I got a painter too. I got a comedian. It was a really fun day. And then Oscar took over and just blew us away with his awesome music. So if you are, check out Arts and the Usual Art Specs on Facebook and all social media just to see when their next show is, because I'd love to do another live podcast from one of their art shows. That being said, I also did some comedy. I did a show at the Backdoor Comedy Club, as when I'm not usually working, that's where I'll be. Had a great set. Then we transitioned. My friend Justin Foster was in town, and he headlined the Addison Improv on a late Saturday show. Got a standing ovation, which is always nice to see, and something I aspire to as a comedian to possibly get at some point in my career. We all had a great show. It was a great lineup of Justin Foster and friends. Justin closed out the show with an amazing set. So thank you to the Addison Improv. I got more shows coming in June. I'll be featuring at Hyenas in Fort Worth. More to come on that as we get closer. And if you like the show, hit the follow button. leave us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. And I will now go get ready to head to the Pediculus Brewery to take day 2 of live podcasting. I definitely know what kind of PA system I need to get. And so I can't wait. And it's been a great week. And more to come. Thank you for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. And now some thank yous for the folks that make this show possible. Thanks to Barry Whitewater for my art and graphics. You can follow him on Instagram at bwhiteh2o. Get it? H2O like water. You can also follow him on Facebook, Music. A huge thank you to Gunnar Olsen for the wonderful music provided for this podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at gunbuns, that's Gunbuns, as well as his website, gunnarolsen.net. Check out some of the samples that he has recorded. They're amazing. He's an amazing percussionist. If you want to follow the show, we've got a Facebook group, Sum of All Fears. Instagram, Twitter, you can find us at Some Fear Fans. If you have some feedback for the show, email me at somefearfans, SOMEFEARFANS @gmail.com. I'll be happy to take those into consideration. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, email me at somefearfans@gmail.com. We can try to iron out some details and get that settled in. Give us some feedback. If on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, leave a review. It makes the show bigger, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to record as many shows as I possibly can. If you want to follow me on social media, I am at Ryan Perio. It's RyanPerio on all social media platforms. You can follow me there, and you can check me out at ryanperio.com, my website. I'll try to list upcoming shows there as well. It's been kind of spotty because as soon as I set it up, that's when the pandemic happened, and everything's kind of just in a holding pattern. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. Next week, we'll have another guest with another fear. Thanks for listening.